Welcome back to Orange Hat Reviews. I used to be a fan of the Arrowverse. The earlier seasons were the best of each show that I have seen. The first two were most of the time, the best seasons. Arrow, first two seasons were good. Flash, first two seasons were great. The Savitar season was actually also great for Flash. Supergirl, which will be the point of this story, so wait 1 second on that. Legends of Tomorrow. First two seasons were not bad. But the second season did start heavily putting into identity politics. But at least the story was not too far out there. Anyway, Supergirl, or after Legends of Tomorrow, Supergirl did its first season, was a great season. And the second season rolled around, started off good, but then it started to really go downhill with the political and biased episodes. And I have done all of this, or a lot of notes on from beginning of season 3 through season 4. And I'm going to basically be exposing that Supergirl, the show on the CW, how that show not only was very politically biased, but it was to indoctrinate. It's a very politically far left agenda show of how it became that way. So let's get into it. Basically, the third season starts off with an attack on capitalism. Everybody knows that the left, this is going to be a political video, which goes against the grain of my normal content, so yes, sorry, this is what it is, because it's part of the entertainment that I am reporting on. It's outright attacks on capitalism with the whole Morgan Edge character, how he is a capitalist, and he's a man, and they make no contradiction in their points, basically pointing out that men are chauvinistic little capitalist pigs, and that capitalism is evil. If it wasn't for capitalism, the show would never have been put on. Then they started with the whole AntiAlien Agenda in season 4. Or, before we get into that, this is going to be a little out of order. But anyway, outright calls out real-life administration under Democratic presidency and shows which was a screw-up. I made a video on this. It was a shorter video, but I'm going to go into it a little bit more. We all know that the president wants to build a wall down on the border. And they actually mentioned the wall in the third season of Supergirl, where Maggie Sawyer's father was talking about the wall and how they were putting it up to keep immigrants out and this and that. Well, if they were building a wall in Supergirl, in their presidential administration, then guess what? At that time, in the third season, the president was not only a female and an extraterrestrial to boot, but it was also a Democratic president, which was confirmed in season 2 by Cat Grant when she asked, "Oh, please, just tell me you're still a Democrat." Yeah, they basically have the show as a Democrat putting up a wall to keep immigrants out. I don't know if that was a screw-up or if they were just so blinded by their hatred that they decided to throw in that little tidbit. It defends the third-wave feminist narrative by making the greatest threats, or it defeats their own third-wave feminist narrative, by the way, the third season. because they want men are evil, men are superior, or men are inferior to women and all that, girl power, yada yada stuff. The third wave feminist movement, which basically doesn't call for equality but superiority. But here's the thing. Most of the true evil characters of the third season were women. So them pushing that narrative kind of defeats their own narrative, which was kind of stupid because they made out the greatest threats to the world was women in power. Kind of stupid, again, to shoot yourself in the foot, but this time you kind of used a shotgun. That is why these shows should not become political or identity political. They need to balance themselves out. The show got rid of most of the male main characters. They got rid of Wynn, shot. They got rid of John Jones from the DEO, Wynn shot from the DEO. John Jones, the Martian Manhunter, was still in the show, but he was no longer part of the DEO. Then they had another woman come in. They gave the director position to her Supergirl's sister, Danvers, the other Danvers. Can't even remember her name, I'm blanking. But Windshot goes to the future for some weird reason, to save it or whatever. And it's like, he was a great character. He was like the Felicity of Arrow. He was like the Cisco and Caitlin of Flash. He was a smart one. But they got rid of that one. Then they pushed the anti-gun legislation in Season 3 and mischaracterized weapons used in the show. Basically, they tried saying, you don't need a rifle that's like an AR-15 to hunt. And it's like, I'm sorry. We understand there were school shootings in real life. But you guys are just blaming the gun again. They sacrificed good storyline or good storytelling for an outdated racial inequality narrative where James Olsen, who was played by McCad Brooks, I think that's his name, everybody knows he's black in Supergirl, but then in the first season, he didn't make it a huge issue that he was black. But in the third season and whatnot, in the fourth season, he came out, or third season, he came out as Guardian, and he's like, I'm afraid to do it because I'm black. And then he told a story about when he was traumatized as a kid, when he got arrested, and they handcuffed him as a 7-year-old, and they brought him into a hotel, and people, it's like, dude, that's not the way the world is anymore. You gotta get past your freaking traumas. Just because you're black does not mean you're going to be seen differently. You are still pushing that far-left narrative that black people are still oppressed in today's time. It's not true. Yes, there is racism, but it is not as far-reaching as you think it is. As this show indoctrinates people to believe it is. The Season 4, Alien, we're going to get into Season 4 now. In the fourth season, they started putting people as anti-alien because they found out that the president was, in fact, an alien. So she had to step down and the vice president took over and whatnot. And we'll get into more of that. Basically, they made it to be that this new president taking over was basically Trump. Let's be honest here. They were basically making it out to be Trump, and there's a point to be made. But here's the thing, when they were doing the anti-alien thing, the anti-alien protesters, all the protesters that were anti-alien were 99% white men. So yeah, far left narrative again. White guys are the problem. They had one or two black people in the anti-alien protests. That was it. One or two. The Season 4 consists of the symbolic narrative that conservatives hate anyone who is not a U.S. citizen. Which is true. I mean, I'm a conservative. Believe it or not, I have no problem with people who immigrate here. As long as they do it legally. If you come in illegally, you're breaking the law. So them using the extraterrestrial immigration thing and the hatred towards them, they're basically saying that extraterrestrials are the US or the immigrants coming in on the south border of the United States in real life. This whole 4th season was political allegory and political metaphors. And I'm going to give you some flat out notes. Season 4, Episode 5. They take a shot at Project Veritas by creating a website known as the People's Veritas. Except the People's Veritas is an organization to show and spread hatred. Project Veritas in the United States and the real world exposes government corruption and showed how the left has proven to be very hypocritical. Season 4, Episode 11 shows the advocacy of a childhood transsexual disorder. And yes, to me, I do believe that transsexualism is a disorder. If you believe that you are of the opposite gender that you are born, maybe you need to understand that kind of gender, or the gender, a little better. But anyway, basically saying it is right to encourage a child to transition into a different sex at a young age. There is something going on in Britain where a father does not want his child to be mutilated by his mother because his mother didn't want a son, she wanted a daughter. This child is 8 years old. And the character of Dreamer, which I thought is a decent character, they made her trans, they made her alien, and yada yada, but she tells her story about how she was transitioned at a very young age. They mutilated her at a young age. So, and whatnot. Also tries instituting the belief that transsexualism defies the laws of science, that a woman is indeed a woman after transition, no matter that they were born a male. I'm sorry. I believe differently than other people on this. I believe that if you were born a man, you are a man no matter how much you try to transition into a female. You have male genome in you. No matter what science today does, it's not going to change the fact that you were born a man. I will still be kind to you, or kind to transsexuals. I know a transsexual. I'd call her by her in public. And private, amidst other conversation, I will still refer to her as her. But it still doesn't change the fact that she was born a man. It also defies the laws of science, and vice versa, by the way. It also goes so far as to promote that a female transsexual, meaning male to male or male to female transition, can have children biologically. The character of Dreamer has a descendant in the future. She was transitioned fully into a female. In this time period, in real life, it does not, or no matter if you are transitioned to a female, you cannot give birth. You are genetically a male. You do not have the biology to carry a child to term. Or at all. Doesn't work that way. The movie Junior with Arnold Schwarzenegger, myth! Doesn't happen in real life, people. It's a movie. Anyway, it grows clear that Season 4 is clearly metaphorical to the immigration policies in the United States, which I already pushed. It is their way of pushing an agenda instead of telling a story, especially bringing in a president who is facing overwhelming immigration problems. Season 4, Episode 12 throws another leftist supporting ideal, supporting a very biased news organization of the Washington Post, where they compare the Catco to the Washington Post, a beacon of truth. The Washington Post is heavily biased. It is not objective. It has only recently begun doing a little bit more objective reporting. Earlier this year, they were as biased as the left can hire them to be. I shouldn't say hire. Allegedly, I should say hired to be. So yes, I will call that one back a little bit. I don't want to get sued. Season 4, Episode 12. Oh no, I already did that. The show becomes more political with their metaphorical stance against corrupt government that promotes hatred. This is a direct reference to how the far left perceives the current administration, saying that it's intolerant, xenophobic, racist, and all that. One character, the character of Manchester Black, actually calls himself an intolerant left. Yeah. There is a measure of accuracy in the political messaging. The character of Manchester Black calls himself an intolerant left, and his tactics do actually reflect somewhat of the left narrative of extremism. Meaning, yeah, basically, anyone with a dissenting opinion or a difference of opinion, you should not be allowed to speak, you should not be allowed to talk, you should not be allowed to do anything. He actually kills people with differences of opinion. Considering how much the season of Supergirl has proven to be very politically outspoken, it is not beyond reason, it is within reason to suggest that the episode titled, What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way, is another metaphorical stance in the production's belief that the administration is acting without government oversight, which is, of course, wrong, by the way. President can institute executive privilege, yes. But believe it or not, it still does need to go through Congress. Season 4, Episode 18, given the political allegory and metaphorical representation, it is not beyond reason to suggest that the deputizing of the Children of Liberty is a fantastical representation of ICE raiding the homes of illegal immigrants who have violated the law in the United States. It is not beyond reason to theorize that this entire season has been a championing of illegal immigration, except that they use the most hateful way and suggest that anyone who believes otherwise is a xenophobe. And they paint the villains in this case as extremely aggressive and hateful towards those not from or in the United States legally. That is true. They basically say that the right is so full of hatred that we will go and we will be as evil as they paint the right out to be. Their derogatory term of the word roaches for the extraterrestrials is very synonymous to the derogatory term for Mexicans back in the 90s and 80s and whatnot. They used to call Mexicans cockroaches. Some people actually still do. I've actually seen that sort of hateful rhetoric put out there. Sorry for the camera shake. Season 4, Episode 20, inflamed rhetoric is continuously used as they stab themselves in the foot. Again, basically pointing out that any opposition to their way of thinking is inciting violence when violence is not actually incited. And they brought in the Russian narrative. They brought in Red Daughter, but they used it to do political allegory again. They are suggesting that the new president in Supergirl is colluding with Russian-owned Kosnia and is willing to kill anyone who might know about it. Very easy to see through the allegory that this leftist show is believing the Russian collusion hoax. Yes, they basically had the president colluding with Russian forces and Lex Luthor and whatnot. And then he gets booted out by the 25th Amendment. You think that people are not smart enough to see through this kind of shit? I mean, really. It is no wonder that Supergirl has fallen from grace, the show. They're bringing in Crisis of Infinite Earths. I will check that out. But their later seasons are probably going to flop badly because of their political narrative, especially in Supergirl, and their identity political narratives that they have been pushing out throughout the rest of the shows. I don't even know how Arrow is going to get an 8th season for Crisis of Infinite Earths because Oliver Queen is gone. So isn't Felicity Smoke. Anyway, that's the video. You guys know the drill. Like, comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. This is a longer video. I know. Let me know what you guys think about all of this that you have heard today. About Supergirl and that show. I used to like Supergirl. I thought the first and half of the second season were very good until they started pushing political female narratives and the whole, or political identity politics narrative where feminists, sorry, not female, feminism, the third wave stuff. That was a slip. But anyway, yeah. This has been Orange Hat Reviews, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. Let me know down in the comments what y'all think. Have a good one.